Welcome to Resilience Talk, hosted by Paul Spencer of Second Nature Solutions. Let's dive in.
So I was talking with a friend of mine about the morality of business. And really the conversation was, how often do we make financial decisions, P&L decisions, economic decisions over the moral side decision-making, or maybe even the humanity decision-making. So the example that he was describing was more of letting people go, right? Making an economic decision versus basically a humanity decision. And so I thought it was an interesting conversation. A lot of it resonates with me when I think about Deming, and in his, because he wrote Out of Crisis in 82, I believe, or 83, probably 83. And in there's he's got the 7 deadly sins. And one of those sins is the emphasis on short-term profits. And he talks about how that if we're, and really he's thinking about more of a corporate side. So thinking about shareholders and dividends and bankers, and those are the kinds of words that he uses. But one of the deadly sins that he talks about is the emphasis of short-term profits, right? Is something that we really focus on a lot, and at the detriment of the long-term vision, what he calls the constancy of purpose. That's what he calls it. So that's in his 14 points, is constancy of purpose. And what that means essentially is having a vision and knowing out in front of you years and an aim and where am I going and why am I doing this? And that is what gets you to a destination, right? And so when you have that constancy of purpose, that helps frame all your decision making. So anyway, one of the deadly sins, again, as I already said, the emphasis of short-term profits means that now we're starting to look at what's the revenue projections for the end of the month. And here it is on the 27th. What are we going to do in the next 3 days in order to shore up our monthly numbers? And what is it that we're going to be doing this quarter so that when we release our earnings report, that we'll get a good shareholder announcement? Or what are we going to do for our dividends? And right, and all of those things, if we take the timeline, go shorter and shorter and shorter. And so now we're just looking right in front of us, right in front of us, right in front of us. And his whole point is that if you get into that mode, then you get blindsided about all the things that are coming at you because you don't have constancy of purpose. You don't have a vision and you don't know where you're going. So anyway, I thought that was interesting. The thinking for me is that we haven't really talked a lot about Deming. Ha, that's a joke. I know you guys, you hear me talk about Deming all the time. And I would say that there's really maybe only 1 or 2 of you that are really good students of Deming, that you really can go inside and out of all the different philosophies of Deming, why those things are in place, what that means for you, and how you actually want to think and manage and govern your organization. The rest of you tend to hear me say it. I speak about it. I put it in terms, maybe you could say layman's terms, and terms that you can understand. But I guarantee you haven't dug up any Deming, and you haven't looked into it any further than maybe what Paul has told you. And for me, I started. I was trying to think of when I started using Deming explicitly. It's probably in 2014-ish, somewhere in there. When I went to my first 2-day seminar for Deming seminar up in Dayton at Aileron. And we were just still fairly new in Palm yet. And really even maybe I'll give you a little bit of a life story here. So in with the Agile manifesto with software development, that was all derived up. I believe they were up in Detroit, maybe, and it was a set of software developers who were working in car manufacturing, and they had taken some of these lean manufacturing principles and applied them to software development, and that's called the Agile manifesto, and that's really where a lot of the Agile development came from, and that was around 2000. And that was early on in my career. And I was blessed to be able to join a team in 2003 that really was really invested in all these ways of thinking and really a philosophy and a mindset about how we could build software in a different way. And really, it was lean. It was lean manufacturing. And really the roots of it, which I didn't know at the time, were all rooted in Deming. And so we had built lots of different enterprise businesses, a lot of enterprise software systems projects based on that philosophy with Agile. Did a lot of coaching. I did a lot of executive coaching, building different development teams for, I don't know, probably about 10 years about doing that. And then we founded Pommiet around this whole concept of teams as a service, which in about 2012 or 13 in there was still pretty novel idea. And that at that time, it was very rare to allow a consulting group or a consultant who's on your development team to not be on site. So even if you provided 2 or 3 developers to help you with some kind of software initiative that you have, they would be on site typically. And so what we did is we created a teams as a service, and we formed our own teams. They lived in our office. We had our own philosophy, which is where the Harmonics Way concepts come from. We had our own way of managing our people, our software systems, how we integrated, how we built software craftsmanship. All of those things all came out of all of that. And a lot of the thinking around it was from Agile development. Now, we were, I would say at that time, very well versed in Agile and the way it works, and sometimes the way it didn't. We knew the failure modes, the fault lines that were involved with that. And so we had kind of morphed into our own ideal way of managing and doing it. So it wasn't Scrum, and it wasn't purely Agile framework. There was Scale and all these different crazy things that have come out of all that. But we just did it in a way that just held more to the Agile manifesto and to be able to iterate and get feedback loops and have high quality. So anyway, that's kind of my roundabout way as Stacy, who was our president at the time, suggested that I go to a Deming seminar. And that was around that 2014-15 timeframe. And when I went, in my head, I was thinking, how can I learn more about lean manufacturing? And at that point, I had studied a lot of lean manufacturing. I love going outside of, at that time, the software industry, going into more physical things, which is what manufacturing is, and really taking a lot of those principles and bringing them back into what we were doing. To me, that's really fun. And I love learning, as you guys know, and reading. And so that's really what I was thinking about the Deming seminar is, another deep dive into lean manufacturing. And how could I think about other aspects of further improving our development processes? What I didn't know is by the time I went through that 2.5 days, so really 3 days, is I had notes and notes and notes and notes, all kinds of ideas and pages on how to actually run Pommiet. So not as just the development team and how we're going to deliver software, but how we're going to run the company using Deming. And I had never really even considered that before. I'd never even thought of, we could do the whole sales side. We could do the accounting side. We could do the HR side using the Deming philosophy. And so that led to me coming back, and obviously I enjoy learning and thinking about these things. So I'm presenting to our company about all the ideas that I have and what I learned and what we're going to do differently, and letting them explore some of those things. And so what ended up happening is we built Pommiet through the Deming philosophy, and we were really good at it. And we were really different and unique than any other software consultancies. We had a different approach to it, and we had really awesome people because, again, I think it was our nature. It was our nature to build that out. But I think with the framework of what Deming gave us, we had some things to hang them on to. And really, if looking back on it, the harmonics way, which wasn't Carl Harmonic's way at the time, it was just ideas and principles that Rob had came up with for us to build our culture. And they're very Deming focused. We didn't know they were Deming focused. They weren't derived from Deming in any way. But they are tied in very, very closely to what the values and principles that Deming had. So we had a natural fit for all of it. And so it just seemed to just easily mesh with us. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because the whole idea of what Deming is all about, if you can really understand what he's getting at, it's a very powerful framework, very concise, but it fits in so many different ways. And really, he started putting these things together back in the 50s. So it's an old framework. He wrote the book in the early 80s, right? This thing has been around forever. But very few of you are aware of it or know of it, or you may have the bias that it's a manufacturing thing, and it is not. It obviously lives in manufacturing, but it is not solely a manufacturing thing. So fast forward several years, probably somewhere in 17, 18 or 19, somewhere in there, I went back to my friend Kelly Allen, who was at the time he was leading those seminars for the Deming Institute, and I asked him if I could join being a facilitator, because I told him at the time that I've taken everything that I think I know about Deming and applied it to running Pommiet, and that's as far as I can go with it. But I don't know if I did it right. I don't know what I don't know. And the one thing I do know is that if I teach, then I will learn more, right? Just by the necessity of having to explain it to somebody and them asking good questions. And then now I have to explain why that is the way that is, or why the philosophy is that way, or maybe not. I don't know. And Kelly's a good friend of mine, and now, many years later, and at the time, we had stayed in touch through the first seminar that I had gone to, and it's such a beautiful thing. He said, he didn't really ask any questions. He said, "Why don't you come to the next seminar, and then we'll see what we can do." So I joined as a participant. That was the second time I've been to the seminar. Again, learned more things just by doing that. And then I got to go on a nice roller coaster ride with Kelly, and we traveled, did some private seminars, did lots of projects together, still good friends. And I think that's the reason why I'm telling you all this is because Deming is just not a buzzword for me. And I don't think you're giving yourself a bit of a disservice to think it's just a Paul thing, or it's just a buzzword that you don't really need to think about. You'll just let Paul kind of guide you along, which is obviously why I'm here and why I work with you. But the more you can jump into some of the Deming aspects, the better off you'll be, because you'll be able to see the whole world around you in a completely different way. So anyway, kind of just go back to the beginning. So when when I'm having this conversation with my buddy, and he's talking about the moral compass and those things, and I I think it just naturally goes back to Deming for me. It's like, well, Deming talked about that with the emphasis on short-term profits. He talked about that in his system of profound knowledge around psychology, which is, yes, we have processes and systems and understanding variation within the outputs that we have, but we have humans in the system, and we have to understand our humanity, right? The psychology of how people operate, how they think, what their behaviors are, what their biases might be, because that's another input into the system. And I think it's just so cool that he's put all that together, because when you start to put frame of reference through psychology, appreciation of a system, and you say, what's the moral side? What's the economic side versus the humanity side? Deming gives you a framework to run through that. Now, that doesn't mean that it's black and white and, oh, the answers are right there, but it gives you a way to kind of run through some of the decisions that you may have. One other thing, too, that I think is very interesting is Deming has these 14 points, and then he's got the 7 deadly sins, and then he's got SOPK, which is System of Profound Knowledge. And I'm going to repeat these. The System of Profound Knowledge is appreciation for a system, which we all know, because we've talked about it a million times, is how our processes are visible and transparent and how they connect, right? And then knowledge of variation. There's only 4 aspects to the SOPK. Appreciation for a system, knowledge of variation. We have to know that you can't get 25, 25, 25, 25, 25 every time. You'll get 23, you'll get 50, you'll get 18, right? And you have a natural variation. It'll go up and down. It's super important to have an understanding of that. Theory of knowledge is like what we talk about all the time. How do we experiment with that, right? In Deming's world, he would say, what's a PDSA? Plan, do, study, act, right? What's the PDSA that we can run to learn, right? To improve the system. And in my terminology, I say, let's experiment with that. And how can we experiment? The last one is the psychology, which I just explained. So those 4 basic tenets, you can hang every decision that you make across within your organization. But you can also get a richness around the confidence that you have around being okay with being wrong. Why is it okay to be wrong? Because we have a theory of knowledge, and the theory of knowledge states that you don't know. It's just a theory. Now, you may be able to say, oh, I'll be able to get $1 million this year, more than last year. Okay, well, what's the percentage of that? Well, that's a 50% increase from last year. Okay, what's your theory that that'll work, right? It's just a theory until you go and prove it tomorrow and the next day and next week and the next week. It's still just a theory, and you have to be able to adjust and run those experiments in order to achieve your aim in that case. So anyway, I thought that was an interesting topic. There's so many different levels with Deming that I want to encourage you to go out and maybe explore some of the Deming website. Grab a Deming book and read it. Actually, read it. You might enjoy it. And, there's another thing in here too, which is because I work closely with the Deming Institute. They have an awesome portal called Deming Next. And there's so many different training modules, it's an LMS system that there's so many cool little things in there that you can do continuous training with your staff and your executive teams. And if you're looking for something to have access to that, then just send me a note and we can get those things set up for you. But anyway, these things exist out there, meaning Deming has answers to a lot of the questions you may have, specifically around this one, which was, what's the moral decision? And there's never going to be, well, this is the moral decision. There's a huge variation around that, right? But if you have a framework in place, it helps you to have more confidence in the types of things that you're up to. And plus, why wouldn't you do it? It's a lot of fun.